Zachary Kiihne is on your right. Both these players off to great starts, 1-0. Get ready for two very different decks. You know, what I can tell you is this. You know, this weekend we got ourselves 656 players. I'm curious to see how many of them are going to be playing Wilderness Reclamation, and kicking things off here with the stomping ground is Jeremy Frye.
Be interesting to see. Frye's trying to manage a lot of this matchup with spot removal. He's got a lot of red removal here. It's going to be hard to use that effectively against a token strategy. Most of their cards produce multiple threats. And there's nothing in the deck to really expansion either. So, you know, Frye's really going to have to just be faster and combo out in this matchup, because I don't think he's going to be able to play the control game his deck is sometimes set up to do.
History of Benalia is where Kiihne is going to start. Now, in case you're wondering, is the Growth Spiral here from Jeremy. Kiihne started things off with a Sun Petal Grove. Turn 2, played Flower Flourish. Then he played the land to play another copy of Flower Flourish. And now you're going to see History of Benalia. So that's the first 3 turns there for Zachary. For Jeremy, kick things off with a Stomping Ground into a Hinterland Harbor. And now there's a Growth Spiral plus an Opt. So both these players getting rolling here. Now there's a Wilderness Reclamation. So it's a beautiful start here for Jeremy Frye. He'll play Wilderness Reclamation. He'll untap, pass the turn back. Chapter 2 will be red there on History of Benalia. And now here's an attack for 2 there from Kiihne. I am curious how his token strategy interacts with what Wilderness Reclamation is doing, because Kiihne, much like Tom Ross before him, is just mostly creatures.
Yeah, but a big difference here is Frye's list is not playing with any copies of Root Snare. It's red removal and expansion and expulsion to kind of overpower things. Without, you know, having access to Fog, Frye's going to have to battle here just with counter spells and removal spells. And, you know, it's a tough way to get it done against cards like History of Benalia, even Saproling Migration.
It'll be a Sun Petal Grove. And now there is a Legion's Landing. An Opt here from Jeremy. And we're going to head back over to Jeremy. He'll play a copy of Sulphur Falls. Reclamation trigger on the stack. Looks like it might be float 5. Yep, let's get out those mana counters. Time to untap. Oh boy, there is Explosion Expansion. Big one. Going to take care of a History of Benalia token. And Jeremy will draw a ton of cards. So Explosion looking real good.
Yeah, Kiihne here a little slow out of the gate.
To say the least.
Spent the first 2 turns not really doing anything. And Frye with that kind of perfect Wilderness Reclamation draw of Growth Spiral into a turn 3 Wilderness Reclamation.
Chapter 3 of History will be red. You're going to get an attack here in just a moment. Let's see what else is going to come. Another copy of History. Another token. Get in there for 4. Looks like going to be leaving back this token from the Legion's Landing to be able to play a Venerated Loxodon. These creatures will grow, absolutely. And Kiihne might be able to present lethal next turn, but I'm not sure he's going to get one.
If Frye was on a build here with Root Snares, I think this game would be over.
I agree.
Instead, you know, we watched week 1 Todd Anderson play a similar style of Wilderness Reclamation, and it was noteworthy just when the battlefield got wide, how much effort it took for him to kind of keep his head above water against these sort of threats. I still suspect here that having drawn this many cards, with having the life total that he has, with Kiihne now having to attack through a Niv Mizzet, which is not trivial, that Frye can still get it done here. But it is a little bit tighter than I think it would be for a Bant Nexus deck. Now, the other side of that is Bant Nexus doesn't play with Expansion Expulsion, so Frye wouldn't have gotten to draw 6 cards last turn. So
yes.
It cuts in both directions. But, you know, he's still got to kind of answer these threats on a one-for-one basis here.
Niv Mizzet is on the battlefield now, and in combination with Wilderness Reclamation, it's going to make it very difficult for Zachary Kiihne to win this game. The big dragon has been deployed, and Frye has all of his mana available. Now, Jeremy Frye might be a name and a face that you are familiar with, because did very well at Grand Prix Santa Clara last year, which was a team tournament, as you're going to see Adanto transform. He's no slouch. We don't see him a ton here on the SCG Tour, but he's got accomplishments to be sure. So here's a copy of Shock. Draw a card, finish off that token.
We're all done here. I think Frye's got enough instance here to,
You think so?
to just completely
you think so?
mop up in combat.
You're feeling confident, are you?
I think Kiihne's leftovers are 2 lands in hand.
Yeah. But what about the Adonto? Have you taken that into account?
It does keep pace with Niv Mizzet in a certain way.
Yes. Gives Niv Mizzet something to kill.
Something to do with the draw step.
Yeah. I think you've forgotten about Adonto. We'll see how much longer Kiihne wants to play out the home stretch here, but we know one thing from Guilds of Ravnica Standard that holds true in Ravnica Legion Standard. If you get to untap and take a turn with Niv Mizzet, it's pretty hard to lose.
And interesting here that both in Frye's list and with Joe Lissette, they have made the move to main deck counterspells. I wonder if they're just anticipating that much of the mirror at this point.
Okay. I think that also helps give them a leg up against old Esper.
Yeah. Any matchup where you either have to answer their Wilderness Reclamation or you think there's going to be a battle over it.
Yeah. Because one thing we know for sure is that Esper Control had a very nice weekend last weekend, both at SCG Baltimore and across, online tournaments and MCQs and RMCQs, all that other stuff. As you're going to see, Kiihne can see this game. Jeremy Frye going to very easily win game number 1. His team of Reclamation up a game here over Selesnya tokens. But that is what we have found is that, these counterspells, because I know the metagame is maybe trending towards aggressive for this weekend, but coming in, based off of what happened last weekend, it was a pretty controlling one.
Well, I think you could, with Wilderness Reclamation kind of temporarily out of the picture, it didn't have a very good week 1. I think the Esper decks were really able to narrow down what they were fighting against. It really just Sultai red aggro and white aggro. Now, with these builds of Reclamation being so much better tuned and so much more prevalent, I think it gets harder for Esper because managing Teamer Reclamation or Bant Nexus on top of the aggressive and mid-range strategies and the mirror, that's stretching your game 1, I think. It's just stretching it too far.
Well, you see the options here for both players. We're going to start with Zachary Kiihne, who kind of ran over that particular game. 3 Adonto Vanguards, 3 Knight of Autumn, 3 Baffling End, 2 of the Cruel Harpooner, 2 Sorcerer Spyglass, and a Johnny Adversary of Tyrants, and a singleton copy of Vivian Reed.
I would bring in the Vivian Reed here. I think the Cruel Harpooners, having seen Niv Mizzet probably coming as well. I think Adonto Vanguard is pretty good in this matchup, as is Knight of Autumn, as a little bit more interaction for enchantments.
Other side of things here for Jeremy, it's 4 copies of Thorn Lieutenant. Haven't seen that card for quite a while. 2 Lava Coils, 2 Biogenic Ooze, 2 Negate, 2 Crushing Canopy, 2 Entrancing Melody, and a Rekindling Phoenix.
Love the 2 copies of Entrancing Melody. And besides, I guess the Biogenic Ooze is pretty good in this matchup. It's not like Kiihne's great at killing opposing creatures. But I would sideboard pretty light here. I could be talked into the Lava Coils, I suppose, but I wouldn't want to go. I think his game 1 setup here is it's pretty solid. I wouldn't want to mess around with it too much.
I will say the sideboard here is a little bit different from what we've seen from other Reclamation decks. There are creatures here. We're used to seeing a Hydroid Krasis, for example. I'm not seeing that here. I don't believe he has any main deck copies.
Well, there could be. I don't know if the Thorn Lieutenant is necessarily for the mirror match, but it could be just the phenomenon of, well, if I tap out, what they're going to do to me on the way back is so bad that I instead need to sideboard into a threat that's cheap to resolve, but allows me to spend my mana down the line.
I also say that's probably your best sideboard card against red.
Yeah, Thorn Lieutenant's not bad. Well, once you're teamer, I think the Bant decks, Knight of Autumn and Lyra, if you want to do that, is really, really good. But, Thorn Lieutenant's not a shabby option there either.
Well, those are the options there for both players. Game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment. Zachary Kiihne will be on the play. They're working on that. We're working on the StarCityGames.com newsletter, folks. It's your source for Magic the Gathering news. We, of course, are going to highlight our good pal there, Brian Gottlieb, and his take on Living End from a few months ago, where you'll find highlights from some of our very best articles, upcoming SCG Tour dates and locations, IQs and game nights near you. Very important if you're looking to qualify for the Players' Championship at the end of this year. And best of all, this is totally free to sign up for it. Go to StarCityGames.com/newsletter.
I've got a problem with the newsletter.
Talk to me.
Came into my inbox.
Uh-oh.
Going over the, articles and going on to Star City Games.
Okay.
At the bottom, you do your little preview piece on the Open here in Dallas.
Yeah.
You refer to Ryan Overturf in that piece as SCG Baltimore champion.
Okay, yeah.
I also have won an Open and don't recall being referred to as an Open champion during that time. So I want to know, how long are you going to refer to Ryan as the Baltimore champion in the newsletter.
Well, see, now
This is a 1 week thing.
This gives me the opportunity to win this small battle, because now I know that you read the newsletter, which is great.
I skim at least.
Well, you skimmed enough to see this. So now it's just, what adjective do I use for you? Bitter Open champion, Patrick Sullivan.
Most dominant draft challenge, SCG draft challenge champion.
That could be in there as well. Yes.
I don't know. Shaheen Sarani also.
He's got a few more W's than you in the draft challenge.
I played in 3 and won 2 of them.
That's very good.
Hit. That's quite the hit rate. They don't exist
quite
anymore.
Good. Yeah.
This was an event Sundays in the SCG Tour many moons ago. It was basically a 64-person double shootout draft tournament.
Yeah.
You 8 pods, 8. The winner of all 8 pods, then draft again. Single elimination. Winner takes it all.
I tried to give Ryan a little dap for his recent win last weekend, but apparently that did not sit well with you.
I want to know what the policy is all.
Amara here is going to resolve. Here's an opt from Jeremy. A pretty aggressive start here for Kiihne, which is certainly important in this matchup.
Yeah, he spun his tires for a little too long last game, and that gave Frye a window to curve out really smoothly. Game was never that competitive.
Speaking of spinning your tires, a couple of ops. What's the follow-up here for Jeremy? It's a stomping ground tap. That means Amara's going to get a shot in and make a token. 4 or 5, actually. And you're going to convoke, I think, into Venerated Loxodon. So the plan this turn is to take a turn off, build a larger, more powerful battlefield that ideally Frye cannot deal with.
And I think with the setup here of Frye's deck, I think he may not really be able to beat this start.
Yeah.
This might be just too much too fast, and he doesn't have a sweeper. He can't cheat through the turns with any sort of root snare action. If he has to just play normal Magic through this, I question his deck's ability to do it.
And this start feels a lot more of what makes decks like Azorius aggro and mono white aggro so attractive.
Right.
You know, the 1-drop into 2-drop into Venerated Loxodon, and now I'm going to start attacking. I can probably close the game out in 2 turns. And oh, by the way, I have other cards in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not sure exactly what other cards Zachary Kiihne has in his hand. But going to start things off with an Entrancing Melody, will Jeremy. So Kiihne's going to very quickly untap and draw. Looks like he picked up a copy of Tristani.
Oh, a good answer to Entrancing Melody.
Indeed. I actually think he can cast Tristani. Yeah, because of the transformation on the land.
Beautiful, beautiful turn.
Yeah, we're going to get Tristani at the ready here, that's for sure. Because this, I know, that Grand Prix,
came up.
That Grand Prix in Denver we played in, this came up for you. You almost got yourself in a little bit of trouble there.
Yeah.
The old take the creatures back text. You might not think it matters all that much, but in this instance, it looks like it's going to, as here is Tristani. This is a card that Kiihne's liked for a while. He's got 3 copies in his deck. He'll make a couple of tokens. These creatures get a bit larger. Trigger, give me this back. Thanks. Tristani Discordant looking very powerful. And yeah, Jeremy, you can pick up those 3 lands because we are definitely done here. That is for sure. Zachary Kiihne runs over Jeremy Frye that game. And now Selesnya, which looked horrible in that first game, looked pretty darn good that second one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the matchup when you're playing against the Bant Nexus style decks, because what's your recourse against Root Snare? But here, with Frye having to manage the game with just spot removal, I think Kiihne's explosive draws here are just going to be challenging for Frye to manage. And with Kiihne there on the play, really fast opening, Frye on a mulligan, didn't really have the smooth start that he had in game number 1, and now we're going to 3.
You see the sideboards here again for both players. Not sure if much is going to change, but both are actually kind of going back to the drawing board here as Jeremy just got ran down. So maybe we do see something like Thorn Lieutenant come in here in this matchup just because he needs to be able to buy himself a little bit of time.
Maybe. I think that Kiihne goes so wide and so big that that doesn't seem like a good use of a main deck slot at this point. But you're right, he did get run over there, and he might want a little bit of early defense.
For Kiihne, again, I think the plan is just to kill the opponent as quickly as possible. Wouldn't be surprised to see Knight of Autumn in the deck, Adanto Vanguard, Kral Harpooner, all cards that you have mentioned as they're shuffling up and getting ready for game number 3 now. Again, Jeremy Frye will be on the play for this 3rd and final one. And we'll have a time-shifted match to bring you after this game does conclude, so make sure you stick and stay for that one. But very quickly, we do want to talk about StarCityGames.com invitational qualifiers for our players that are looking to go to SCGCon Summer and play in the biggest tournament of the summer. This is a great way to go about doing it. We've got exclusive prizes, $1,000 to the top 8. Invitational qualifications, as I mentioned, plenty of SCG points on the line for those looking to qualify, of course, for the Star City Games Players Championship at the end of the year. Top 8 playmat, personality tokens of Jerry Thompson, Brad Nelson, JD Clomparents, Emma Handy, and Brian Gottlieb. A whole bunch more. Go to StarCityGames.com/IQ for more information. Should I put that in the newsletter? Have you won an IQ?
I've never played an IQ.
Okay, so have never. How do I make that an adjective? IQ. You're not an IQ participant. I have to put a positive spin on a negative thing. That's what I'll do. I'm going to find ways now to troll you in the newsletter. I just want you to know that.
So yeah.
I just want you to know that.
I just want to know what the policy is.
This is where I bring the pettiness out. Because now I know you read. So that's perfect.
Yeah, it's free.
It is totally free.
It's free. It just shows up to my email box. I don't have to do anything about it.
It is just totally free for me to just get to do this now. Ryan Overturf, your SCG Baltimore champion, will be in the booth with Todd Anderson for rounds 3 and 4. So you get to hear from the champ, who got the job done last weekend alongside Liz Lynn and Jacob Hagan. Jacob Hagan, of course, playing Azorius Aggro in Standard, which I imagine is probably a pretty popular deck here this weekend.
Definitely. I've been running into a lot on Magic Online, posted very good results in sort of the last couple of weeks of tournaments, and wouldn't surprise me if it was among the more popular decks in the room.
Mm-hmm. Kiihne did a little bit of mulliganing. Looks like he's going to do some scrying now. Again, Jeremy Frye on the play here for game number 3. He'll kick things off with a Stomping Ground. Kiihne with just the Plains. Another copy of Stomping Ground here for Jeremy Frye as we head back over to Kiihne. Does he have land number 2 and a spell to play? For his sake, I hope he does. It's a Sun Petal Grove, and now it will be a good question.
Sapperling Migration.
Thank you.
And trying to do this here, instead of playing one big threat out of respect for the possibility of shock. See Frye here opening up on 3 red-green dual lands, 2 Stomping Grounds, and a Rootbound Crag. Really good news for Kiihne, as it suggests it's unlikely that Frye will be able to smoothly curve into Niv Mizzet. Maybe he's got other stuff going on, but the card that really doomed him in game number 1 is probably a ways away.
Sapperling Migration. I'm going to allow Kiihne to come in for 2 with those 2 Sapperlings, and now it'll be a copy of History of Benalia. So he is going wide. That's what his deck does. Again, Kiihne has been having a lot of success with this particular archetype. I have no idea how well situated this kind of deck is, because one deck that is really underrepresented in Standard is Selesnya. We don't see much of it.
Yep. I don't mind Selesnya as a metagame call. It seems really strong against both mono red aggro and the white aggressive strategies. You just clog up the ground and go a little bit bigger. Against mono red, you have a lot of blockers and a little bit of life gain rolled in there as well. So I don't mind its position here against the aggressive strategies. The question I just have is your Bant Nexus matchup passable? Because it doesn't seem like this deck is especially explosive, nor does it have a way to invalidate Root Snare, and usually that combination is not lead itself to a very good matchup against Bant Nexus.
Kiihne going to kick things off here with a copy of Adanto Vanguard. This will be a Chemister's Insight for Jeremy. So he'll draw 2 cards, looking to get himself out of these mana issues that he was having. History of Benalia, obviously, on Chapter 2, looking to go to Chapter 3 for a pretty large attack. Go ahead, boss.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is Frye's first non-land play of the game here. It's not bode well. Again, no way to cheat combat. He's going to manage all this through spot removal or blockers or going way over the top.
And this is where the versions that have Root Snare and various other fogs or Settle the Wreckage or Cleansing Nova and more of a white base as opposed to a red one, that's where you get your advantage. Yeah. Now here's Thorn Lieutenant. It's a little late to the party, though. The follow-up will be a shock, going to take care of it's going to take care of actually both of the Night tokens in combination with Expansion. Going to copy that shock. So that means the History of Benalia looking pretty bad now.
Yep, not a bad turn there from Frye, playing a little bit of catch-up. Still, blocking the Vanguard here is going to be problematic, but that was not a bad turn.
Frye's life total pretty high here at 12.
And the second, keep in mind there, second blue mana there in that breeding pool. Mm-hmm. Frye is a 6 land plus 1 that makes blue away from being able to potentially cast Niv Mizzet and close this game out very quickly.
Adanto Vanguard will come across for some damage. This is a copy of Flower. So Kiihne is going to go dig up a land here. Going to get a basic Plains. Let's see what the follow-up is going to be. So he's very quickly tapping his mana as our Selesnya tokens player. And that'll be another copy of History. So 1/2/2 Vigilant Knight on the battlefield. Let's see what Jeremy Frye can do now. As he's got that Thorn Lieutenant on the battlefield. 5 lands, 2 of which tap for blue, 3 others that tap for red. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to be a Niv Mizzet this turn. It's going to be an Opt instead, so we'll start there. Another source of red mana there in Rootbound Crag.
Still not triple blue.
Well, Wilderness Reclamation has shown up to the party. We know how powerful that card is. The question now is, what can Jeremy Frye do with it? He's going to float a little bit of mana. Is it time for a big expansion explosion? No, just a boring old shock. But what this also allows him to do is to keep his mana available to activate Thorn Lieutenant. Now, I know we don't see the activation of this card very often, but for 6 mana, it gets +4/+4. Well, that's not so bad, as there's a copy of Tithe Taker.
Although the 2/3 is kind of the same thing here. It's not like it matters for down to the Vanguard. Kitty can just pay. And the 2/3 is actually bigger than anything else.
Mm-hmm. The follow-up is another copy of Adanto Vanguard. That will resolve as well. So now the big question for Jeremy Frye is, can you beat all that's going on here? He's going to start by playing a Chemister's Insight from the graveyard. Going to discard negate, draw 2. Has to pay 5 for that Chemister's Insight because of the Tithe Taker that's on the battlefield. Now we head back over to Jeremy. He's got a land to play that I think is a blue source. It is an Innerland Harbor, and you've been talking about this all game, and it's finally here. Here's a copy of Niv Mizzet.
Well, now, can he, I mean, you know, if Frye has an Opt or a Shock here, it's really bad news, of course, but you got to just send everything in for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your spot's not getting better.
Add a red. Untap all of these lands. Is this something like Expansion Explosion, perhaps? He is tapping a decent amount of mana on his own turn. He'll play a Chemister's Insight. This game just got real hard. Bink. That's 1. Draw. Draw. Bink. And bink.
Yeah, I mean, the door is closing really fast here on Kiihne.
You are not wrong, as Tristani is in hand. History will trigger. There are no knights on the battlefield at this moment, and Tristani can make things a little bit larger, but will it make things large enough? Keep in mind, right now, Chemister's Insight costs 5.
Yes.
Only 4 mana available. Was perhaps that a miscalculation here for Jeremy Frye? Can't cast it. Can't cast it.
And you see Kiihne's hand is up
Can't cast
immediately.
it. Nope. Had to do that on his own turn. So now there is Tristani. Here come the Dum-Dums.
I mean, this is lethal if Frye can't do anything.
Absolutely it is. 2 blockers, both would have to go on Adanto Vanguard, right? So the other 2 creatures, Tithe Taker and the Sapling Token, would get through for lethal damage. Has Jeremy Frye made a significant miscalculation? And he has. Zachary Kiihne is going to win this game and match over Jeremy Frye 2-1. Just snuck by Niv Mizzet, and you can see the body language there for Jeremy. He knows he made a mistake.
Oh, I mean, he played a really, really smooth and clean game right up until that point, but just lost track of the Tithe Taker there. Didn't have the 5 mana left over to play.